Ladies and gentlemen, I come to you today bearing good news. What's up? It's Sean again, here with Media Windog Watchpeg and also Winnipeg Alternative Media. And like I said, I actually have a little tiny bit of good news for you. And it might actually be a tiny bit more than a tiny bit of good news. I could be wrong about this. I hope I'm not, but I might be wrong. But it may be the case that mainstream journalism is in fact not dead after all, at least everywhere, or at least entirely dead. I've actually been paying much closer attention to the Winnipeg Sun lately, and I'm very impressed by a lot of the writing done by their columnists, especially. They're doing actual honest-to-God journalism and telling actual honest-to-God truth and using things like facts and science and statistics and data and reality to back up what they're saying. And I want to today we're just going to go over a few examples of this from the Winnipeg Sun that I've pulled from the past several days. I guess what is today, the 17th? So from the past 4 or 5 days, I've pulled 3 different stories that I want to cover to just kind of give you guys a little bit of maybe a glimmer of hope and a bit of reprieve from the nonstop fear-mongering and anxiety-causing clickbaity headlines that are going around these days, especially in regards to politics and the coronavirus. And we are going to start with this article here from Miss Lori, I'm assuming Miss Lori Goldstein, Miss, maybe Mrs., I'm not sure, but I'm assuming Lori is a female anyways, which, again, I could be wrong about that too, just like I could be wrong about the fact that mainstream journalism isn't actually completely dead after all. Who knows? I've been wrong before, I'll probably be wrong again. But anyways, this Lori Goldstein writes, with Trudeau, it's always somebody else's fault. And I was immediately on board with this article just from reading the title. As far as clickbait titles go, I'm not really a big fan of them most of the time, although I understand the appeal and the idea and the desire to have a snappy title that's going to draw people in. I think there's a difference between that and actual clickbait, but as far as clickbaity type of titles go, this one definitely hooked me in and drew my attention in right away. So let's read, shall we? Justin Trudeau. Oh wait, did I skip something? No? Okay. Justin Trudeau attacking Canada's opposition parties for reviving official inquiries into his We Charity controversy that he shut down when he prorogued Parliament in August is absurd and politically dishonest. It's yet another example of the Prime Minister refusing to take responsibility for his own actions. Like I said, this article is going to be a lot of fun. And I got a couple more to come just like it. And so, like I said, this is a feel-good good news video. This is the Winnipeg Sun giving me a glimmer of hope, like I said, that maybe mainstream journalism isn't entirely dead after all. It's the same thing he did during his Aga Khan, and SNC-Lavalin conflict of interest scandals. It's also a consistent pattern he exhibits whenever confronted by controversy. With Trudeau, it's always somebody else's fault. This time, Trudeau is falsely suggesting that it's only the Conservatives who care about the We scandal, when in fact the concern is shared by all the opposition parties in Parliament, including the NDP and Bloc Québécois. I'm gonna just interject here for just a second. You say that, but then at the same time, the Liberals and NDP both voted unanimously to delay or kill, I'm not entirely sure still, I need to look into that more closely, but a few days ago, a week ago, however long ago, both the Liberals and the NDP party voted unanimously to delay or kill, as I said, the investigation or any investigation into the We Charity scandal. So maybe the Conservatives and the Bloc Québécois are on the same page about this, but it certainly seems like the NDP, maybe in the time between this article being written and today, have thrown their hats into the Liberals' corner, shall we say. While Liberal MPs are doing all they can at these parliamentary inquiries to prevent them from finishing their work, Trudeau's excuse this time is that he's totally focused on the bang-up job he's doing for Canadians dealing with the COVID-19 crisis. Insert hysterical laughter here. This, I wanted to propose to this woman when I read that. That's basically what my reaction was, too. Oh, please, don't make me laugh. In fact, Trudeau has dismissed criticism of his government's many failures during the pandemic, including downplaying the severity of the crisis until mid-March and ignoring years of warnings by pandemic experts of the need to stockpile PPE by arguing, now is not the time to address these concerns. Yeah, no, you're right. Now is not the time to address these concerns. The time to address these concerns was over the past 5 goddamn years that you've been prime minister. You had plenty of time. Of course, when it does come time to address them, Trudeau will argue the opposition parties are politicking while he's trying to save the economy. True to form on Tuesday, Trudeau blamed the Harper government for failures at the Public Health Agency of Canada during the pandemic. I'm gonna probably do a whole video on this, but Trudeau's been prime minister for 5 years, and he wants to blame everything on the dude who was in office before him, and is the exact mirror situation of what is going on in the States, where Trump has barely been president for 4 years, and everyone wants to blame every single thing that is wrong with America currently on the guy that's only been president for 4 years, let alone, never mind the fact that a lot of these problems were started decades ago and have been festering for decades, or have been issues since the founding of the country, whatever it may be. Yeah, never mind all of that. Every single thing that is wrong with America today, according to the mainstream media at large, is Donald Trump's fault. And apparently here in Canada, everything that is wrong with Canada, and especially everything that was wrong with the COVID-19 pandemic response, is not Trudeau's fault, is Harper's fault, the dude that was in office before Trudeau. So I think that's just ironic, that dichotomy of blame that exists between Canada and the US, when our response stories are actually a lot more similar than what you might think they are. In fact, as reported by the Globe and Mail, it was the Trudeau government's decision last year to kneecap the agency specifically created to give Canadians early warnings about pandemics, the Global Public Health Intelligence Network, that was one of the reasons for the government's slow response to COVID-19. Remember when Donald Trump was getting all that shit for cuts to the pandemic response unit in the United States? Public health and national security experts shake their heads when President Donald Trump says the coronavirus came out of nowhere and blindsided the world. Trump disbanded NSC pandemic unit that experts had praised. So Donald Trump disbanded their pandemic response unit in May of 2018 and was given, all the shit in the world for it, as he always is for every single thing that he ever does, whether he's right or wrong, because it's Donald Trump and Orange Man bad. Trudeau basically did the same thing, made similar cutbacks to our pandemic response unit in May of 2019. So, pretty much exactly a year later, following in old Donnie's footsteps, this pattern of refusing to accept responsibility for his actions repeats itself over and over again with Trudeau. In the Aga Khan scandal, Trudeau said accepting free family vacations from the Aga Khan on his private island in the Bahamas while his government was considering taxpayer funding to his charity wasn't illegal. This because Aga Khan was his close personal friend and the law allows for gifts from friends. When then Ethics Commissioner Mary Dawson said that wasn't true, the Aga Khan's friendship was with Trudeau's father Pierre, not Justin, that he had broken 4 sections of the Conflict of Interest Act, Trudeau apologized and said he would consult the Ethics Commissioner in future. In the SNC-Lavalin affair, Trudeau falsely called the Globe and Mail story that broke his second conflict of interest scandal false. In the We Charity controversy, Trudeau testified he doesn't think he put himself in a conflict of interest by approving an untendered contract to We that includes a $20 million administration fee to run a now-canceled student volunteer program. This despite his family having received more than $560,000 in speaking and expense fees from We. So yeah, you get the idea. Justin Trudeau makes a lot of mistakes, and it's always somebody else's fault. Now we're going to hop over to this article, which might be, is it my favorite of the 3? No, I think the next one is my favorite of the 3. This one's still really good, though. Hansen by Victor Davis Hansen, another one of the Winnipeg Sun's great columnists that I am now a big fan of. Destroying the institutions we inherited. Dr. Tedros from the WHO here. I'm just going to take a quick sip of water here before we start to read. In the 21st century, hallmark American and international institutions have lost much of their prestige and respect. Quelle fucking surprise, as the French would say. Politics and biases explain the lack of public confidence in organizations and institutions such as the World Health Organization, the Commission on Presidential Debates, the Nobel Peace Prize, the Pulitzer Prizes, and the Academy Awards. I really don't know why they felt the need to put the Academy Awards in there. I guess the Academy Awards is like this big, long-standing American institution. I really don't think it should be, personally, but whatever. There it is. It's in the article. I guess they wanted to have a nice round 5 examples. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, they wanted to have a nice round 5 examples instead of just 4, and they could only come up with the Academy Awards as a 5th one. I don't know. That just kind of made me laugh a little bit. But these next 3 paragraphs might be one of the best things I've read in a long time. The overseers entrusted with preserving these institutions all caved to short-term political pressures. As a result, they have mostly destroyed what they inherited. The World Health Organization's Director General, Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, is the first person without a medical degree to hold that position. Why? No one really knows. In the critical first days of the rapidly spreading COVID-19 pandemic, almost every statement issued by Tedros and the WHO about the origins, transmission, prevention, and treatment of the virus was inaccurate. Worse, the announcements predictably reflected the propaganda of the Chinese government. Oh, I love this person. I love these columnists. They're so good. The Bipartisan Commission on Presidential Debates was formed in 1987 for 2 purposes: to ensure that during every presidential campaign, candidates would agree to debate, and to ensure that the debates would be impartial and not favor either major party. Unfortunately, in 2020, the commission so far has a checkered record on both counts, and if you watched either the vice presidential debate or the first presidential debate, you would know that that is absolutely true. Conservatives have argued that the moderators of the first presidential debate and the vice presidential debate, Chris Wallace of Fox News and Susan Page of USA Today, were systematically asymmetrical in their questioning. Moderators asked both President Donald Trump and Vice President Mike Pence to explain prior controversial quotes and then to reply to critics' accusations. The moderators did not, however, pose the same sort of gotcha-type "when did you stop beating your wife" questions to Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden or Vice Presidential nominee Kamala Harris. Love it. So you get the idea. This guy is basically writing an article, a column, about how these long-standing American, Canadian, North American international institutions, the WHO, the presidential committee, debate committee, the Pulitzer Prize, they're all losing their credibility. People are losing faith and losing respect for them. And I think kind of what he is slowly getting at here, without coming right out and saying it, is that it's largely their own fault, and they really don't have anyone to blame for it but themselves. So I fucking loved this article. I think he might have even actually come right out and said it towards the end. Here we go. Yes, the lesson in all these debacles is that anywhere ideology trumps science, public service, history, art, and entertainment, ruin surely follows. Very, very well said, Victor. On to the last article. This one came out not the most recently. This one came out on the 12th. And this was actually the article that made me stop and start paying much closer attention to what was going on at the Winnipeg Sun. This is a column by Candace Malcolm from October 12th, which was 5 days ago now. That says, let's put these COVID-19 numbers into perspective. And this is something that I have been screeching about on this channel for weeks, if not months at this point. We need a reality check when it comes to the so-called second wave of COVID-19. Our public health experts are giving confusing, constantly changing, and often contradictory advice, whether it's about the effectiveness of masks, the risks of travel, or, more recently, on airborne transmission and the usefulness of rapid testing. Get out of here, window. Our media, meanwhile, are busy sensationalizing the data and misleading Canadians about which numbers matter. Yeah, that's putting it mildly. News headlines emphasize the growth in new case numbers while ignoring the fact that we're testing 8 times as many people per day as we were during the height of the pandemic in April and May. This is something that I've talked about at length in numerous posts that I've made in the past, but it's great to see other people in more mainstream outlets, whether they be just Winnipeg outlets or otherwise, that are talking about this. Back in March, tests were heavily restricted and reserved for people who had recently traveled to China. I know because I tried to get one and was told repeatedly by health officials that despite having symptoms, I did not qualify to be tested. It wasn't until mid-April that the government of Ontario began tracking how many tests were taken per day, because why would we bother tracking those numbers? Well, how could those be important? Throughout April and May, Ontario was testing fewer than 10,000 people per day and as few as 5,800 per day. Quick sip of water. Fast forward to Friday, when the province announced that it had set a new record for the number of tests performed in a single day at 48,500, which is, about almost five times more than what they were doing in May. This context matters. Without providing corresponding information about the growth in testing, the number of cases is more or less irrelevant. The media blare out the fact that new cases are up 25% from the height of the pandemic, but ignore the fact that testing is up 800%. This is a lie by omission. It is alarmism, and it should be ignored. Instead of hysteria focusing on new case numbers, we should aim our focus on what really matters. Number of new cases in vulnerable populations, especially those over the age of 70, number of hospitalizations, number of people in ICU, and number of deaths. And when we look at these numbers, the situation looks a lot less scary. In early May, Ontario was seeing more than 1,000 new patients admitted to the hospital each and every day. On October 9th, there were 225. That's less than a quarter. At its height in early April, there were 264 patients in ICUs across Ontario. On October 9th, there were only 47. In other words, we accomplished what we set out to do. We successfully flattened the curve. We should be proud of that fact and moving towards rebuilding our economy while also taking precautions like social distancing, mass testing, and protecting vulnerable populations. Yes, absolutely. Instead, leaders in politics, the media, and public health are promoting panic over a second wave of COVID-19 and advocating for more economic lockdown measures, like those announced Friday afternoon by Ontario Premier Doug Ford. Ford announced that all gyms and fitness centers, bars and indoor restaurants, casinos, and cinemas must close in major Ontario cities. He also banned social gatherings and events, including weddings. COVID-19 is incredibly deadly for those in their 80s and 90s. 81% of all deaths in Canada occurred in long-term care facilities. Meanwhile, for people under the age of 60, it isn't clear that COVID-19 is deadlier than the seasonal flu. I can actually add a little bit of extra context to that. For everyone 69 years of age or younger, in Canada, the mortality rate for COVID-19 is 1% or lower. However, if the WHO's most recent estimates that the infection rates for COVID-19 are 20 times higher than what is being reported by the tests, that also means that the mortality rate for COVID-19 is 20 times lower than what is being reported by the tests, which makes that 1% mortality rate for everyone 69 years of age or younger a 0.05 mortality rate for everyone 69 years of age or younger, which is half the mortality rate, I believe, of the seasonal flu, which is around 0.1%. So just keep that in mind. And yet, Ford's new economic lockdown measures aren't designed to protect elderly Canadians or improve conditions at senior centers or long-term care homes. We are having the exact same problem here in Manitoba and in Winnipeg now. It is clear at this point that the elderly population, the 70 plus and 80 plus population, are the ones that are at risk. And they have rightfully moved all of the long-term care facilities and care homes in Winnipeg and the surrounding area into the red zone in order to take extra precautions to try to protect them. I'm all for that. That makes sense. However, they're also implementing these rules and restrictions on the rest of us, the other 87% of the population, that make little sense and that aren't really going to help, like restricting gathering sizes in the home and restricting capacity limits in businesses and stores. Hopefully, with any amount of sanity and logic and reasoning, the people who are at risk aren't going to be going out anyways. Hopefully, assuming people aren't being inconsiderate pricks about this, which I know that there are always going to be those people out there, but for the most part, most people that I've even talked to about this who are against the lockdowns and against the masks and all of that, even they are being very reasonable and respectable about this for the most part, especially when it comes to their friends and family and those who may be at risk. Like, it doesn't make any sense that when only 13% of the population is even remotely at risk, that you punish 100% and restrict 100% of the population, especially with, when I said, like, as I said, it's rules and restrictions and regulations and whatever that make absolutely no goddamn sense and likely aren't going to help in the first place. So, however, that was kind of a bit of a doom and gloom moment, but I did want to, like I said, the whole point of me doing this video was to go over these 3 articles from the Winnipeg Sun, these 3 columns by these 3 columnists from the Winnipeg Sun from the past few days, and kind of, like I said, give you a glimmer of hope and a little bit of a feel-good moment of, oh my god, there are actual mainstream journalists and mainstream newspaper writers out there that are still doing legitimate journalism and telling the truth and putting things into the context that they deserve. So I wanted to get that out there and have a little bit of a happy feel-good moment for you all. So if you enjoyed that, please leave a like on the video, leave a comment on the video, subscribe to my channel, head on over to my Facebook page, Media Windog Watchapeg, and leave a like and a review and rating and all that good shit over there. And also be sure to follow Winnipeg Alternative Media. I work with them quite closely as well, and I've been doing a lot of work with them as well. So make sure you head over to their YouTube channel and their Facebook page and all that good stuff, and subscribe to them and follow them as well. And we'll see you guys soon for another video. Ciao, ciao.